Comment, bienvenue. Welcome to another property podcast starring, of course, Hamish McClay of Search and Convey and myself, Gareth Wax, the man of many purple hats. We talk about topics that are possibly right on the edge or possibly just starting to irritate the property community and try and explore them a little bit. Today's topic is, as ever, something that I'm sure all of you will have had thoughts about. Can AI really fix property? Now, I've seen what you mean by that, Hamish, is fix the way the property market works.
Yes, and I think not exactly the property market itself, but the administrative aspect of what goes on within property.
Okay.
And how AI can support what goes on.
But I do think, and we were having a sort of conversation. I was actually getting on my orange box a little bit just before we came in the green room, because I think there are two fundamentally opposing schools of thought with AI. One is, oh my God, it's new technology, it's taking over the world, it's going to remove all our jobs, and everything will burn. And I am pantomiming it. Excuse me. I'm going for a reductio absurdum. I'm going right to the opposite extremes. And the other one is, it's a wonderful tool. It's here to help us, and we should embrace it and use it wherever we can. And I think, in actual fact, the truth probably sits somewhere between the two extremes.
I think, in actual fact, if we fully understood it, use it as much as we can. However, it hasn't been fully worked through.
No.
I mean, it's sort of quite interesting. I caught up on it was a LinkedIn post yesterday, and it said, what phrases or what words is it that you really annoys you when you see them turning up? And it's sort of things like deep dive, which is a great, absolutely famous one that AI loves to bits. If you're trying to write an article, it quite keeps finding deep dives and ways of navigating and all sorts of things like that. But there's also other aspects which sort of come in, and sadly, there's far too many Americanisms and things like "my bad." At least that doesn't come into AI. But the reason I make mention of the commonization of those particular sort of words, AI basically takes a sort of average of everything that goes in there and thinks that, oh, because other people are using these words, I will use them a lot. And therefore, they keep coming back. So you can see too many of those. But I mean, that's looking at basic sort of AI. I think what we're speaking about here is how AI can receive data, interpret how that data looks, could be the duplications, are the verification, validations, and actually pursuing that, saving somebody from the time from sorting it out, and therefore putting, if you like, sort of finalizing, putting all the information together that it feels ought to be the information that somebody wants to handle.
But the thing is, I think the misunderstanding here is that you throw AI in front of everything and it's just going to fix it. When maybe I haven't banged on about this enough, but it's all about the prompt. It's the way in which you address it in the first place, and the information, the pre-information you provide it with, that will enable it to work better or worse, and more importantly, to not seem like everywhere else. I mean, LinkedIn, as you know, is my bugbear and my bête noire, but as well as my living. And my focus always is there. When I look out upon the content that's currently coming out onto LinkedIn, I call it the great blandification. It's all lowest common denominator prompting. They're using AI, fine, but they're prompting it with so few bits of information that it's going for, as you say, what's in the top of the bell curve? What is most people talking about? Well, we better talk it that way. And that's why, in many ways, you've got all those Americanisms, Hamish, because the vast majority of people who are using AI are in America right now. And of course, if you don't tell it otherwise, it's going to assume that's the way you want to behave, that's the way you want to respond, and that's the syntax you're going to use whenever you're dealing or communicating about a topic.
I mean, there is the other aspect that, I mean, you're quite right there. I mean, what's good, we can put data into Chat GPT or AI sort of generally. It will come out the other end, and that's when, of course, it puts these sort of common expressions in. Now, if you actually sort of have a look, I mean, the trouble is we've got all these things starting up now. Things like you could use YouTube, and YouTube used to be a great, great channel. All of a sudden now, you've actually got to pay money to get rid of the ads. And if you like, sort of probably 1 in 4 of the ads that turn up on YouTube is, hey, come and join us. We'll show you how to use AI.
Yes.
You actually get onto whatever other sort of thing. And then so many ads that so many people are pushing through. Use AI. We can show you how to use AI. And we've got a situation at the moment, particularly in this country, where business isn't turning over quite as quickly as people want. And therefore, more and more people are trying to sort of ply you with soft solutions.
Right.
They're sort of saying, oh, AI is just the thing. Now, I do believe AI has some incredibly time-consuming activities. It can reduce us too. But the thing is, unless we're doing something often enough to actually get all the prompts to suit us, it's going to take a lengthy time. And I think one of the most convincing, in fact, the two most convincing things that were said to somebody to me about AI, one was from, in fact, they were both from the guy involved with property. First of all, you need to be very, very competent with AI to make best use of it.
Absolutely.
The second one is there are insufficient people qualified, experienced enough in the industries in which they're trying to sell the use of AI. So, for example, within property, we need a hell of a lot more. When you think of how many people work in property, I mean, conveyancing, how many, if you like, how many conveyancers are there? How many property lawyers are there? And how many people are there qualified, experienced in AI that have worked with conveyancing that can actually tell you, right, if we do this, we do that, we can do it. There are very, very few. There are a large number of people who have used AI on industry, on support generally, like we might actually sort of say virtual assistants. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of virtual assistants, and some of them are fantastic because they've learned to specialize in a particular aspect of it. They will have worked in, it could just be arranging appointments with somebody. It could be just on, but what it is, they become very proficient because it's easy to sort of streamline. And I think this is the challenge with AI. And I say a lot of people will sort of say, well, it's sort of bland in a way, but it can be very creative. And I think it's a combined task, but I think it's finding the experienced people. And the other aspect is, which was actually sort of mentioned, which again is a crucial aspect. Basically, AI, or whichever method you use of AI, does not replace people.
No, and it doesn't. What it does is it creates new kind of roles, as opposed to you will lose. And I have to say, before everybody throws their arms up in the air, and I got a lot of weird comments, this sort of activity has been happening since the Industrial Revolution and before. When a new technology comes in, that means that you no longer have to be the person who stamps the can or pushes the thing, that a machine can do it. What happens, and most people don't realize it, is a whole bunch of new jobs pop up to promote, support, manufacture, and engineer the very tools that do the pushing for you. In the same way with AI will actually produce a whole bunch of new jobs, the most obvious of which are prompt designer, prompt manager, and prompt editor. And the prompt being the whole thing you construct. Now, you can create a series of standard prompts, But to get them so that they actually produce what you really need to do, each one will need to be edited to reflect that specific situation, which is where the editor will come in. And the manager is a person to make sure that overall the AI is being fed the right amount of information to give the right sort of response back. Now, these are just 3 jobs I've come up with. There's going to be a whole host of other ones. So we need to take the blinkers off and not think that, for instance, the only jobs in the world are X, Y, and Z. There's going to be a whole bunch of them. Some of the older jobs will become redundant purely because a machine can do that quicker and faster, but it can't make decisions not the way a human does. So everything requires creativity and a little bit of thought and introspection. That's all going to come from a human at some point. Humans will be in the mix. It's just that the job market, especially in property, will skew a little bit. It will be less arduous to find certain information about a property. It's going to be more arduous to find out what is relevant to that area and all bits in between, which is what it must be said that Hamish is the organization he belongs to and what he does for a living is all about not just collecting all the information. I can go out and even once all the information about properties are online, it can grab all the information, but working out what is relevant, that needs a human. And that's where, for instance, IPSA, the independent personal search agents, come into their own, because they work out, as I've often said, the John Lewis version of it. That's not just all the information, but the right information required for that specific situation. Would you agree, Hamish, that humans are always going to be required?
Very, very much so, because I mean, when you actually sort of look at it, because we're looking at properties now at the moment. I mean, it's quite amusing actually. I don't know how our government manages to get in the mess that it manages to sort of get into.
It's a talent. It's a talent, Hamish.
It's obviously a talent that, yes. They obviously, I don't know, maybe they've done what you suggested, Gareth, and put AI and said, sort it. And
yes, I think that's joking aside, Hamish, I think that's pretty much what they've done. They've done a 3-word prompt and they wonder why it doesn't give them all the right results.
It could well be the case, but we've got a U-turn in terms of the number of councils now, because they're going to have council elections. And these were ones they wanted to actually cancel.
That's right.
Now, whether the reason was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They maintain that, well, these councils are going to become sort of unitary authorities. So why should we get councillors involved? Well, it's a good idea to get councillors involved. But the other thing is, to me, we've spoken about this before, the number of councils, I believe, including the Isles of Scilly, I don't know quite what that has to do with the government at the moment, but I'm sure there's something we could put together. But I believe it's 318 councils altogether now, which will be reduced by the combination of councils over time. And I think you mentioned it the other day, Gareth. You picked up some detail that 2009.
That's right.
There was late night, sometime in the 90s. We had some combinations. Then we had another lot go through in 2009. Yep. And we're having another little sort of flurry of councils becoming unitary authorities. And this the idea of unitary, as we've said before, it brings together these councils. Now, so let's assume that there's 250 councils. Never mind the 320 best part that we've got at the moment. There's 250 ways that details and things have to be handled. And of course, we've got to prompt AI to be able to sort of collate the records that come in from these 250 councils. Now, how can you possibly do that readily? Now, we do have, and in actual fact, they would have improved what happened. Land Registry were trying to improve the situation and reduce the amount of work that was sort of coming through. So basically, they could resolve the land charges issue. So they would be reported in one particular sort of way, and the information would come through from all the councils. Now,
they've been working on that for 15 years. And we've got another 2 to 3 years to go before they get through all of the councils. They're still finding that there are errors here and errors there. It is improving, but they will now be using AI, which they weren't using previously, which will be sort of quite handy for that. But it is still not resolving all the issues relative to all of the councils. Ultimately, it will actually get to a point where that is improved. However, we've still got this consolidation, because the way the consolidation is working, it's not ironing out those aspects which are relevant to the property. It's sort of saying at the moment, it's sort of saying these could be relevant. It hasn't been able to narrow down that information. Why? Well, we don't have enough people who've worked with AI on this particular scenario to become experts. Therefore, to be able to use AI to trim down what Land Registry are doing. And therefore, so you've got Land Registry on that side, which hasn't got it right, working on it for 15 years. And you've got councils that have been trying to digitize things since 1990. And we've still got councils who still haven't digitized their records. We're trying to bring AI in to do that. Now, all of these things are improving the situation, and they will actually refine the data, make it effective. There's all sorts of pilot schemes being running outside of AI. But the biggest challenge we're hitting at the moment, and we are hoping to get to sort of better ways of doing it, but the biggest challenge we've got at the moment, there are far too many differences to make it fully effective. And I think that's the position we happen to be in at the moment. It is actually improving and making life much, much easier in many, many ways. However, it cannot replace people. I think one of the biggest mistakes that many councils are making, when they become unitary and when Land Registry take over, they are working on the assumption that you need fewer people once these things are introduced. It's not the case. You still need the people to ensure that the information is correct. And if you keep them there for a while, the whole situation will be remedied much, much quicker.
Well, it will do, because they will be able to ensure that the AI actually understands the context of all searches, and also will provide the right information, not everything. And I think that's you're quite right. Getting rid of people willy-nilly without realizing that there still needs to be humans in the mix is a crass assumption. I think it doesn't help. Hamish, thank you so much for helping us talk about these topics. And to all of you out there, plenty more property podcasts coming up. We have tomorrow, Wednesday, the IPSA kind of magic one, which is talking about the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents, of which Hamish is the current chairman. We talk about all topics to do with search, but also to do with IPSA. So if you're interested in finding out what's going on in that neck of the woods, please do join us. Be about 1 o'clock. We also have on Thursday our topical bun fight, which is called Property Quorum, where we all talk about topics that relate to a variety of different property professionals. I know that we're going to be joined by at least one, if not more, property professionals, so that we can take different views of the same topic that happens to be in the news, talking about property in the property market. And then finally on Fridays at 1 p.m. we have Cladding Matters. Cladding Matters, we regularly get 18,000 views on that show. It's very good way of seeing what is happening, and also perhaps shaking your head slowly at the terrible misfortune that we have with so many people locked into dwellings which have got cladding on the outside, which is on the point of being remediated, but the standard to which it's going to be remediated to is so watered down as to make it almost pointless. And we are talking about that property reform and property safety reform. And please do join us with that. It's a great show. Hamish, once again, thank you very much for being the mastermind behind us. And all of you watching, please keep your feet on the ground, Keep reaching for the stars. And in these troubled times, please try and look after your mental health. Until then, bye-bye now.